Morning, everyone. On this day, Wednesday, January 16, 2013, at 10:30 a.m., a meeting of the Committee on Administration of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building, located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Chair, Vice President Armstrong.
Here.
Vice Chair, Commissioner Lavelle. President Trobert.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Koldyke. Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Shalaby, Commissioner Salgado, Chief Administrative Officer Tanya Anthony, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1, from the Comptroller, authorization to enter into a contract for 2012 to 2016 annual financial audit and A133 audit services. A roll call vote.
Oh, not yet.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning. I'm Cecilia Prado, the Comptroller. And as you know, the Office of the Comptroller is required to prepare an annual statement giving a full and detailed accounting of all receipts and expenditures during the preceding fiscal year. And such statements need to be certified by an independent accounting firm. So today, I am recommending that authorization be entered into a contract with McGladdery LLP for a 5-year contract for the financial and single audits for 2012 through 2016. Any questions?
Could you talk just a little bit about the evaluation process? This is a new auditor for us?
Yes, we are recommending a new audit firm. We had a request for proposal. We had 8 firms responding. We had an evaluation committee of 5 members from management. From the initial evaluation, we went down to 4 firms, and we believe that McGladdery would be a good fit for the Park District.
How long did we have the previous auditor?
For approximately 10 years.
And what's best practice in terms of our auditor? Do you every so many years need to switch the audit partner within that firm? And is there best practices to how often you ought to switch the firm itself?
It is recommended to change the audit partner approximately every 3 years. In our case, I think that every so often it is recommended just to get a different set of eyes to look at our cost, make sure that we are having a cost efficiencies. So it is recommended to at least evaluate different firms and see what is the best fit.
And in this evaluation process, this bidder was the low bidder or not the low bidder but was more qualified?
This bidder was not the lowest bidder. We do feel that they are best qualified. We had oral presentations after we did our initial review of the proposals, and from these presentations we obtained clarification in terms of the experience, any questions that we had, and we feel that this firm with the implementation plan and the experience that they bring to the table would be the best fit for the Park District.
Is there a particular reason why the contract would be for 5 years?
No, that's just what when we started the request for proposal process, we looked at a 5-year contract. The first year is usually there's usually a learning curve, so it is not recommended to have just a 1-year contract.
Any questions?
I move to approve the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll take a roll call vote. Chair, Vice President Armstrong.
Aye.
President Trobert.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you.
Item number 2, from the First Deputy General Counsel, authority to enter into intergovernmental agreements with the City of Chicago to accept the transfer of various funds for park projects. Timothy?
Morning, Commissioners. Timothy King, First Deputy General Counsel. You may recall from last year that we asked for the authority to enter into blanket agreements with the City of Chicago in order to pursue and receive any and all available funding for capital projects. Now, although board authority to receive funds is not required by either the Park District Code or the Park District Act, as a matter of policy and under the leadership of President Trauberg, we'd like to be as transparent as possible. And this is one of those initiatives to ask for the authority to pursue those funds. From time to time, the funds we receive from the city, which include TIF, open space impact fees, aldermanic menu money, bonds, settlements, judgments, grants, those may require agreements that the administration would enter into. What I'd like to do, this is a great story for the Park District. What I'd like to do is summarize some of the funds we received in 2012. Some of this may be redundant because, as you know, from time to time, we also, not only upon request, but quarterly, we like to report to the board progress to date in receiving these funds. But to total the 2012 numbers, we received almost 13 million, 12.9 million to be exact, in TIF funding, which were used for various capital projects throughout the district, and just in 2012. We currently have another $2.2 million in TIF funding pending already for 2013 projects, and here we are, third week of January, and those are pending before City Council and TIF Task Force. In menu money, which is the money we receive from the City Council members out of their $1.3 million allotment that each council member receives for various capital improvements in their wards, they've chosen to give to the Park District $2.4 million of that menu money just in 2012. So, I mean, without these funds and without this partnership, it would be, some of these projects just would take forever to be built, if at all. So it's really critical that we partner with these elected officials and the city. These capital funds do not include the mayor's special initiatives that he had this year, the NATO funding, the $2.5 million that he sent over in the summer for special summer programs and workforce development. So these are separate. This funding is separate and distinct. This is for capital. So with that, I can open up to any questions.
So, Tim, just review exactly what you're asking us to approve today. The authority for you to, on an ongoing basis, accept TIF funds?
That's correct. Accepting TIF funds. It's a critical point that the President asked here, because we're asking for the authority to accept the funding, which expedites the process, the physical check cutting process and wire transfer process from the city to the Park District. However, the board, Park District Board, gets final approval over the spending of this money. So once the money gets into our coffers, when we put a project out and actually spend the money, any dollar over $100,000 per the Park District Code, that's when we again come before you to actually spend this money. So all we're doing is expediting the receiving process, which certainly, as you can see, is critical to what we're trying to do. But when we actually spend that money and on the particular projects, we come back before the board, and you actually authorize that spending.
But Tim, though, in addition, I understand expediting this, but in terms of openness and transparency, that we're getting funds for a specific purpose, that will be reported to us on a monthly meeting basis?
It's reported to you on a quarterly basis and upon a request. So really, with every project, we try to include in that board authorization letter, right in the body of the letter, where the funding is coming from. For example, in the case of aldermanic menu money, this actually allows more transparency, and here's why. Aldermanic menu money is funded to the council members as a line item in the city budget, each council member receiving $1.3 million. So how they spend that 1.3 throughout the year does not require individual city council approval. And per our act and code, legally the board doesn't approve the acceptance of such funding. So without this type of transparency and this authorization, in theory, an alderman could give us menu money, and neither the fellow members of the city council or the board would know about it unless we present it in a package like this.
So here, Tim, we're asking for the authority of the board to accept the money, but as projects come up and we present to the board, then they'll be given the authorization to spend it. Right?
Absolutely correct.
Just a question, if I may. Tim, when you
Yes, sir.
do accept the money from certain budgets of aldermen, is there an expectation on their part that those monies are going to be matched, or that a certain project is going to be followed through by the park district?
On the follow through, absolutely. They want to see how their money is being spent. On the on a dollar for dollar match or a third, or there's been that's fluid, and that's something that is explained to the council member long in advance. Keep in mind, before any council member ever gives us money, they're usually plugging a hole on the back end, as most of you, every one of you on the board has worked with various council members to get projects that you're concerned about. Commissioner Armstrong with Slam Dunk, Commissioner Salgado on the southwest side, some of the projects, Commissioner Shelby over the years, system-wide, Commissioner Allen in the 10th Ward, and some of your other projects. I mean, you've all worked with your various council members, and a lot of times it's us trying to plug holes that we've already front-funded. So it's not necessarily a dollar for dollar match, although we'd love that to be the case. But it's and there's really no requirement that each council member, out of the 50, I would say there's probably less than half that actively choose to use their menu money for park projects. So we'd like that to be more, but it's not a dollar for dollar match. It's more of a as needed and what's important to that alderman.
And there will be a quarterly report of everything that comes in on a quarterly basis, as the president mentioned, for transparency purposes and just for general knowledge.
For TIF, open space impact, menu money, and upon request. So it could be more than quarterly if you choose.
President.
I'd like to congratulate Tim King on this, because this is a monumental step. We've been trying to do this for many years. Because what happens is that there's a state requirement that says that we have to have board approval to enter into these types of agreements. And so by doing this, we're meeting that state requirement, but we're not slowing down the process every time that an opportunity becomes available. We're getting blanket authority and then accountability and transparency to report back to you what it is that we've done.
I wanted to thank President Traubert, the staff, for making this available and taking leadership on this, but also, is there a way that we thank the aldermen, even though they're meeting the needs of their constituencies, they are designated some of this menu money, and if we can get more of it for park projects, it would be good. Is there a process that we have, or a way in which we make sure that those aldermen that are invested in park projects get properly thanked, and we encourage others to do more?
Absolutely. We recognize them at board meetings, as you know, as you've been involved, and we recognize them at the ribbon cuttings when the projects finally come to fruition. There's we recognize them via thank you letter and things like that. But obviously it's the community presentation when the project is finally put forth and we have the ribbon cutting that I think they really take pride in.
Yep, that's great.
Motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
If no objection, we will apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3, from the General Counsel, amendment to Chapter 3 of the Code of the Chicago Park District.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lupe Garcia, General Counsel. This is another positive item being put forth by the Law Department. What we are asking is your permission to amend Chapter 3, Section C of our current Ethics Code. As many of you will remember, in the past, we have been required as Park District employees, Park District commissioners, to file 2 ethics statements, or what we call economic disclosure statements, one with the county and one with the Park District. And working together with Tanya, our Chief Administrative Officer, and Mike Simpkins in the Human Resources Department, we were able to find a way where moving forward, we will only be required to file one statement with the county. and it will be done electronically. So you will no longer be receiving a financial disclosure statement from our own ethics officer. You will receive a notification from the county. Secondly, what this does is in the past for the employees, we used to have a cap that if you earned $50,000 or more, you were required to file an ethics statement. We have removed that salary requirement, and now we are using the requirements of the state. We used to put the extra requirement on it because we wanted to see how many reporters we would have. But what we've learned is that we're requiring individuals who are electricians, carpenters, riggers, who don't have anything to disclose to file, and that's really an unnecessary step. We're not capturing the people we need. So with that, I open it up to you if you have any questions. Okay.
I have one question, Lupe. The city does it, and they still maintain the city and the county. I know we didn't have to do it with the city, we do it with the Park District. Will there be a way for people to verify through the county what filings have been done by Park District people?
We will. We will be able to do two things. The county has offered to download all of the statements that are filed by Park District commissioners or employees and send those to us in one file, one electronic file as PDFs. Secondly, our ethics officer will have the ability to go on the county website and actually download himself any ethics statements as well as the public. Because as the county receives it, they put it up on their website. So that will certainly be available. What we are also going to do is send out an email to remind all employees, regardless of whether or not they're required to file, that they still owe a fiduciary duty to the Park District. Because what you will notice on the county form is that it only asks you to reveal any conflicts you have with the county's vendors or companies that do business with the county. That is not going to exempt you from also disclosing any conflicts you have with the Park District. You still have to report those to the ethics officer and then work it through with him.
So who's actually determining which people have to file the economic disclosure statement?
We're taking the requirements from the state statute and we are matching them up against our job titles. So for instance, one of the requirements is if you're a Park District commissioner, you have to file. So clearly that's an easy one. Another requirement for employees is if you are a supervisor of a certain number of employees, you're required to file. So Human Resources has already gone through those job descriptions and titles and determined who those are. Usually those are chiefs, directors, area managers. Another requirement is if you manage any contracts of $2,500 or more. So we've already looked into that.
So if I may, once those requirements are identified, the titles and the individuals are identified, we send a list to Cook County so that they will know who we have identified as required to file. And notification will go out to those employees from Cook County as well as from the Park District to remind them that they need to go and file those statements.
And then what would happen is the county notifies me or Tanya that from the list that we've sent them that somebody has failed to file. And then one of us, or if it's necessary, the ethics officer will follow up with them.
Any other questions? Motion?
I move item number 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
That concludes the Committee on
If
Administration.
no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter. And the motion will be carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Administration. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Administration is now adjourned.
Committee on Programs and Recreation on this day, Wednesday, January 16, 2013, at 10:51 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of Programs and Recreation of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District being held on the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Chair Commissioner Shalaby?
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Salgado?
Here.
Vice President Armstrong?
Here.
President Trubert.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Chief Administrative Officer Tanya Anthony and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1 from the Director of Natural Resources, authority to amend the grant agreement with Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance. I see it's Mary Eisenbach.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel Garcia, Chief Administrative Officer Anthony. I am Mary Eisenbach, Director of Conservatories for the Chicago Park District. It is recommended that we amend the current grant agreement with the Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance. This amendment will extend the current agreement by 3 years. It will increase the annual grant amount from $180,000 to $200,000 a year, starting in the second year. It will allow current exhibit repair monies to be also used for exhibit preparation work. And it will increase the operations funding for greeter and janitorial services to $227,000 annually, with an annual increase of 2% or the equivalent of the CPI, whichever is lower. This partnership with the Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance is really a model partnership for how these operations can work. This investment that the Park District makes annually is returned at least threefold. The current operations funding for the Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance for fiscal year 2013 is $1.9 million. In addition to that, the Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance has raised $774,000 to fund conservatory repairs and improvements over and above what is covered by insurance for the hailstorm catastrophe to date, and are still raising funds for that. Most notably, in 2012, the conservatory was one of 5 museums across the country to be awarded the National Medal by the Institute of Museum and Library Services for outstanding and significant contributions to their communities. I've also invited here Unita Rushing, the president of the Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance. So if you have any questions for either one of us, I'm ready to hear them.
So we're only providing 10% of the total, what you said, operating cost?
No, actually there is another source of funding in the agreement right now. We also share rental revenue with the Garfield Park Conservatory Alliance because they help us market the rentals. We manage the rentals as the Park District, but right now the Alliance, we keep the first $250,000. Then the Alliance gets the money between $50,000 and $280,000, and then we split the difference, anything over $280,000. So it's basically about $500,000 that we invest. So more like close to threefold.
Right.
And these increases, Mary, how did the numbers come up with regard to the increases, for example, from 180 to 200? How was that determined for the next couple of years?
Well, the Alliance, of course, would love to get more money than $20,000, but we are looking at our education programming and the increase in dollars in terms of salaries, as well as trying to fund more development salaries so that the Alliance can raise even more money. So the Alliance actually would have liked to have more money, but we all know that the budgets are tough. So it's a compromise. And the $227,000 was determined from the 2007 agreement, where the Park District was paying for custodial services, and that money was extracted from the Park District budget. And unfortunately, at that time, it did not include overhead, so the Alliance has been eating that overhead ever since, and now we're bringing it back up to par.
Any other questions?
No, I echo your comments. This is a wonderful, wonderful partnership and arrangement that we have, and this is an absolute gem in Chicago. And to have this local commitment and control that leverages the central dollars is a great thing. And so congratulations and thank you for your good work.
Thank you. Are you going to pass this?
Any further questions?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the Secretary please take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Chair Commissioner Shalaby?
Aye.
Vice Chair Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Salgado?
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Trowbridge?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Natural Resources, authorization to change the general admission fee for the Museum of Science and Industry. We have Adam Schwerner. Adam.
Good morning, Commissioners. Adam Schwerner, Director for the Department of Natural Resources and Liaison to the Museums and the Parks. So today I have 2 letters for fee increases at both MSI and the Art Institute, and I'm going to do a quick introductory comments and then ask that the leadership of the museums come and give you a more in-depth talk related to their increase requests. I thought that was the best way of going about that the experts actually talk to this. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners adopt an order authorizing an increase in the general admission fees for the Museum of Science and Industry. The proposed general admission fee increase is to take effect on January 23, 2013. The museum has not increased its fees since January of 2010. The proposed general admission fee increase is necessary to offset the Museum of Science and Industry's lower revenues and higher operating expenses. The museum's operating revenue has remained relatively flat since January of 2007, and the museum's tax revenue support in 2013 is anticipated to be the lowest it has been since 2005. Meanwhile, operating expenses have continued to rise. The proposed admission fee changes can be summarized as follows. Resident adults and seniors, a $2 increase. Non-resident adults and seniors, a $3 increase. Children ages 3 to 11, a $1 increase. And children under the age of 3 at no cost. In viewing the MSI's request, we compared their proposed pricing structure with other museums in the Chicago area as well as other science museums across the country and concluded that the MSI's proposed pricing structure is in line with other museums as detailed in your attachment A. It is important to note that every year approximately half of the museum's attendees are admitted with no charge. MSI is committed to continuing to remain accessible, particularly to Chicago residents and families. The Museum of Science and Industry is an invaluable resource to the people of Chicago. Increased admission fees will help allow the museum to continue to provide world-class science experiences for guests of all ages. Therefore, we respectfully request that the boards authorize this request. And it would be David Messina, the director of the museum, that would have an opportunity to give you some additional comments.
Morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. My name is David Messina. I'm the President and CEO of Museum of Science and Industry, and we're here today, as Adam said, to make a request for an increase in the price of the museum's general admission. A little background. MSI is the largest science and technology museum in the Western Hemisphere, and our vision is to inspire and motivate our children to achieve their full potential in science and technology, medicine, and engineering. We do this by creating bold and captivating exhibitions, and our Center for the Advancement of Science Education goes beyond our walls, directly into the schools and neighborhoods, and literally changes lives of children. Our programs include more than 70 after-school science clubs and reach more than 5,000 kids annually in the neighborhoods throughout Chicago. Our free graduate-level science teacher education courses for middle school teachers. They're free to the teachers. We raise the money through philanthropy. 60% of those teachers are from CPS schools, and now 25% of all K through 8 Chicago public schools have 2 or more MSI-trained science teachers in them. Hands-on educational programs for school group field trips, including free admission for all Illinois school children. And for the 4th year in a row, MSI welcomed the most school children on field trips among the 11 museums in the park in Chicago. MSI is also proud to be a member of the Park Voyagers program, where MSI staff provide hands-on science programming at Chicago Park District's after-school sites each spring. During the six-week period, we lead activities 3 days a week at 6 different parks, reaching hundreds of students with science-themed activities, and also provide their families with workshops, family day events at the museum, and participating families a free follow-up visit to the museum. Annually, we welcome 1.5 million guests 45% of whom come free of charge, including all school teachers in Illinois, all fire and police officials, and active military. MSI continues, though, to see the lasting effects of the recession and increasing costs associated with running a technology-driven museum. We're experiencing relatively flat revenue over the last 5 years, an endowment that has not yet fully come back to its 2007 levels, and primarily added maintenance and staff costs for our newest world-class permanent exhibitions, which are included in our general admission. And just for example, our two most recent exhibitions, Science Storms and You, which have won, I think, 28 international design awards and are part of general admission. They include up to over 100 hands-on interactive exhibit units, all of which require electricity and over half of which require computers. So the technology bar has been raised significantly at the museum, and along with it, significant costs. We continue to be prudent in our levels in our spending. We've efficiently managed staff salaries over these past years, and we've identified ways to cut costs by pre-purchasing our utilities such as gas and electricity and other measures. So as Adam said, in order to continue offering exceptional services and experiences that we do, MSI asks to increase our general admission by $2 for Chicago residents from $13 to $15, $3 for non-resident adults from $15 to $18, and child general admission would be increased by $1 from $10 to $11. Please note that this includes a greater discount for Chicago residents, as adults and seniors would receive a $3 advantage on a savings on new admission up from $2. Chicago children would continue to receive a $1 discount. This increase will allow us to continue to deliver hands-on world-class science experiences, achieve our vision, and be the world-class resource that Chicagoans expect and deserve. We thank the Park District for its continued great support of the museums and your consideration of this request. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can you tell me with the museum's annual budget, and then what part of that budget is generated by admissions fees?
Our annual operating budget is about $45 million, and there is an off-budget amount that is another $8 million, which is a part of our operations but handled through philanthropy. So all total about $53 million for what we do each year. Currently, we are at 9.1 last year in admission revenues from our general admission, and this increase we project will take us up about $1.6 million above that to $10.7 million.
Can you tell me, so if I just look at this as, so it's going to, if you live in Chicago, as an adult, it's going to be $15 and $10 a child. So a family of four,
$50.
$50. And you know, cold winter, I want to go to the museum, you know, 4 or 5 times with my kids. Is there a pass, or how does that work?
Well, a more cost-effective economic way to join the museum, we have a membership program. We have about 40,000 families, the majority of which are from Chicago, because it's economical to use the museum close in and come frequently. And the lowest membership category is $75, and the next is $90. So the highest, I think, is $140, which includes free parking. So you can pay for that membership in 2 visits and come frequently. And we have families who come 5, 6, 7 times a year, especially the closer ones.
So that $50 cost is much, much less for that frequent visitor who joins the museum.
Absolutely. Well, they don't pay it, so it's rolled into the
per cost.
Come as often as you want.
And your membership, President Messina, your membership contribution is apart from that admission figure?
Yes.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's membership is about $2.5 million.
Right.
The revenue we receive from membership, it's over and above the general admission because it's not part of general admission.
Okay. On a separate note, I first of all want to thank you for the aggressive way in which you're reaching out to children and families, both in Chicago but as well as in other parts of our state. And very interested, as the Park District has been, in making sure we're driving into every space and every place in the city, especially those places that may have not have the kind of take up that we would want them to have, right? So it would be really helpful to be able to see where you think we're getting a good take up of the resource that you have for Chicago Public School students, and in what neighborhoods maybe we could be of assistance in making sure we get a better take up, so that we have future generations of people as they grow older making use of the museum.
We can absolutely do that. We also have another program. It's a small endowment that provides Chicago schools that don't have enough money in their budgets to send kids on field trips, to underwrite field trips. The busing. The kids are free, but the busing is not free. So last year, I think 188 schools were able to use some $85,000 in this program that brought 15,000 kids to the museum that wouldn't have otherwise come because their school wasn't able to afford the bus.
Yeah, my concern isn't that you don't have the tools. You obviously have all the tools available. It's ensuring that at the school level and at the community level, they're really taking it up, right? So lots of confidence that you have the tools. Just want to make sure that they're taking it up at the local level, because you can't control that.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be happy to work with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to commend the Museum of Science and Industry. I've as many of us all our lives have probably visited the museum and can't get enough of it, but the good thing about it is it's constantly evolving. State-of-the-art exhibits. Every year there seems to be something new over there, and David mentioned, education. Literally, they teach teachers to teach. There are programs there. It's a great educational tool for everybody, adults and children alike, and it's constantly evolving. So I think anyone who goes there, it's not the same trip every time they go. There's always something new, and we do have a recession problem. We do have expenses, but everyone is going through that. And in order to maintain the museums, they're in the same position. And I know there's been increases in water and other services that have been passed on. So at least when you go there, you'll see your money well invested, and the museum doing great things for everybody. So we congratulate you on that, and good luck with continuing to come up with new ideas. It's not easy. I know you have a wonderful board, and also a lot of these exhibits cost a lot more money than they take in, obviously, from visitors. And you reach out to, can you tell us a little bit about reaching out to individuals and businesses and entrepreneurs to help support these exhibits, David?
Well, we have a very, very strong board made up mostly of Chicago business leaders. And we also have a fundraising staff that raises I think this year we raised $5.5 million just for operations from our annual fund. And that's going to individuals that pay $25, $50 all the way up to wealthy individuals that will give us $50,000 or $100,000. And there are literally thousands of people in that annual fund drive, and we have a full-time staff that is chasing them for money every year. So it's very important. The generosity of the city is what keeps all of these cultural institutions thriving, because they're all supported by philanthropy. They can't do it on the backs of guests. They have to do it through philanthropy and other support and the public support. There's no other city in the country that has the public support, the tax support, and the Park District support that this city does for its museums.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions for David Messina? If not, I'll entertain a motion. A motion?
I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried, and the matter is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
David, thanks for being here.
Item number 3 from the Director of Natural Resources, authorization to change the general admission fee for the Art Institute of Chicago. Adam?
Adam Schrinner, Director, Department of Natural Resources, Liaison to the Museums. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners adopt an order authorizing an increase in the general admission fees for the Art Institute of Chicago. The proposed general admission fee increase is to take effect on February 1st, 2013. This will be the third change in admission pricing over the past 10 years. The last admission increase was in 2009. The requested rate increase allows the Art Institute of Chicago to cover inflationary increases in wages and supports the Institute's ongoing commitment to serve the public through access to their world-class collections and a strong educational program for children, teachers, and adults. The proposed admission fee changes can be summarized as follows. Chicago and Illinois resident adults, seniors, and students would have a $2 increase, out-of-state visitors a $5 increase, and children under the age of 14 will be admitted free. After these increases, the Art Institute of Chicago will continue to be the lowest priced major cultural institution in Chicago when considering an all-inclusive price. Additionally, the Institute's proposed pricing structure is in line with other national art museums. It is important to note that every year nearly 25% of the Art Institute's visitors are admitted with no charge. The Art Institute of Chicago is an invaluable resource to the people of Chicago. Increased admission fees will help allow the Institute to provide world-class and art and cultural experience for guests of all ages. And Douglas Druick will come up and answer any additional questions.
Good morning. I'm Douglas Druick, the President and Eloise W. Martin Director of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I'm here before the Chicago Park District this morning to respectfully request, as Adam said, an increase in the price of general admission. The Art Institute is one of the largest and most respected art museums in the United States. We welcome over 1.4 million visitors a year. Approximately 25% of our visitors enjoy free admission through our 52 free days and our school programs. We are pleased to support the Chicago Park District, including the strong participation that we're involved in the Park Voyager program, and we're proud that each year we provide arts education programs in the museum and outside in the community to 400,000 children, families, teachers, and adults. Like virtually all cultural institutions, we're still recovering from the recession and are coping with inflationary pressures. Over the past several years, we have taken many steps to maintain our bottom line, including multiple rounds of budget cuts and 2 rounds of staff layoffs. In addition, we have absorbed a 31% decrease in taxpayer support over the past 10 years and now pay approximately $200,000 annually for water and sewer services previously waived. Through our cost control efforts and a steady focus on increasing revenues, we continue to serve the public 362 days of the year without compromising our robust offerings. Nonetheless, to keep up with inflation, we need periodically to raise our rates. This is the first, as you've heard, such rate in almost 4 years. We are asking for an increase, as you've heard, for our entrance fee for Chicago and Illinois residents by $2 and out-of-state residents by $5. Effective February 1st, our requested new rates would be $18 for Chicago residents, $20 for Illinois residents, and $23 for out-of-state visitors. We will continue our practice of offering discounts of $6 to both seniors and students, and to maintaining the very generous policy of allowing children under 14 free admission to the museum. We very much appreciate the ongoing support of the Chicago Park District and ask for a favorable consideration of our request. And if you have any questions, I'd be only too happy to answer them.
Douglas, can you tell us about how the Art Museum compares with other art museums throughout the nation as far as costs?
Well, I can cite other. Boston Museum of Fine Arts, for example, has a $25 admission fee. The Museum of Modern Art in New York has a $25 admission fee. I think that we are introducing an innovation here in Chicago by offering discounts, very generous discounts, to Chicagoans because we appreciate the tax revenues that help support the museum, and to Illinois residents. I mean, we identify as a civic museum, and I think we are the only art institution in the country to do so in this way of offering discounts.
I have a
question about will this revenue help there be more community outreach? And can you talk a little bit about what the community outreach looks like?
Well, we're constantly working and refining on what we're doing. We just for example, with our with funding from the MacArthur, have started a new teen lab, which is a new and very exciting development, bringing teens from Chicago into the museum to help us organize, to help us see ourselves, and work with us to critique what we're doing and help us develop new programs. We've just hired, I'm pleased to announce yesterday, a new and very dynamic head of education. In fact, we've moved education from an executive directorship position to a deputy directorship position, and that is Judith Kirshner, who has been the dean of UIC, of the College of Art and the College of Arts and Architecture at UIC for many years. So we're really revving up our education department. We serve Chicago, I think, in many, many ways now, both in the community and at the museum. In our new Ryan Education Center, differently from our former facility, families, children can come into the museum without paying admission and enjoy the various offerings and programs offered by the education program. And as I said, education, working with CPS, outreach in the community, I think we've done a very good job thus far, and we're dedicated to doing an even more creative job moving forward.
President, is there, in looking at your fee structure, there's an equal increase for Chicago residents as there is for non-residents of Chicago, of Illinois?
$2 for Chicago residents, $2 for Illinois residents, $5 for everybody else.
Right. Is there, just thinking through that, is there a reason why there's an equal increase for Chicago residents as there is for non-Chicago residents? Did the museum give any consideration to a higher increase for non-Chicago residents or a lower increase for Chicago residents?
We spent, I think, the last 18 months doing as many permutations and combinations as one could imagine. We had meetings with the Board of Trustees in small groups to discuss this, and after considering many different ways of approaching the challenge, this is what we came up with. It seemed to be, it's $2 is $2, but we wanted to be able to privilege Chicagoans and Illinoisans, but it's Chicago taxpayers that are helping support the museum.
Right. In that vein, I'm suggesting, I guess, that as a Chicago resident and as it is a park district and the Chicago Park District that is in fact, investing in the museum for the benefit of all, that it would seem to me that if we're going to increase, to have a larger increase for non-Chicago residents without driving them away, right?
Right.
Would be something certainly that.
Well, we do offer, as I mentioned, 52 days of free admission, and we're experimenting beginning in February with moving our free day back to Thursday evenings, thereby giving the Chicago population, including the population that works during the day and can't avail themselves of the museum during day, the possibility of access in the evening. So I think that will be, that is another offering, I think, both to Chicagoans and, of course, to Illinoisans, but particularly because it's evening to Chicagoans.
President Deruka, as a follow-up to the non-residents are already $2 more than residents to begin with.
Right.
So, but you also have a third category of out-of-state visitors.
Right.
And just as a practical matter, how do you and other museums enforce these fees? So, for example, if someone, you ask for ID, and what happens if they don't have ID? Are they precluded from entering the museum?
No. Usually it works. People show their Chicago ID or licenses, and they get in. We've had, we made a distinction 4 years ago between Chicagoans and non-Chicagoans, and that's worked pretty smoothly. I don't know that we we don't police it aggressively. I think it works.
Kind of like an honor system, or
It's an honor system, but people do volunteer ID. But as I said, we are offering discounts. So really, our price is $23, and then with discounts for Illinoisans and discounts for Chicagoans.
any other questions?
Yeah, I just have, Douglas, thank you for being here, and I hope you can appreciate from the questions that
Absolutely.
it's our, that since there is public money there, we just want to be assured of the public commitment, and I think you have certainly reassured us of that. I also, know that for you as an institution, for your board, raising your rates is one of the last things that you'd want to do. And you just alluded to the process, this 18-month-long process. Just before we vote, I wonder, these folks have a fiduciary responsibility. They live and breathe this all the time. Just talk a little bit more about the analysis before we vote of what went on at the museum in these 18 months prior to coming here and asking for a raise in the commission.
We reviewed the various ways. We are running an operating deficit right now. We have to close that deficit. We don't want to in any way cut back on the many things that we're offering the city of Chicago. Not only, as I said, some 30 exhibitions a year, which win national and international awards, and I think are very involving and very diverse for Chicagoans and other visitors. So we looked at that, and we looked at the fact that there are inflationary pressures and operating expenses go up. We are offering as much, not only in terms of free days, but in terms of education, in terms of outreach into the community, in terms of our programs in the Art Institute, the free programs for families and for children. We didn't want to have to start trimming on any of those, and so depriving the city of the offerings that we do provide. And we discussed many different permutations and combinations, and the board is very much aware that we don't want to raise prices more than we have to. In fact, if we didn't have to, we wouldn't be doing it. But after much discussion, not only internally but with the board, it was felt that this was reasonable, not too onerous, and signaled our commitment to the city and to the state by putting more of the burden on out-of-state tourist visitors.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you, President Druk. If there are no other questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter. Thanks
Motion
again.
carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the Committee on Programs and Recreation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, hold on.
Second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried, and the Committee on Programs and Recreation is now adjourned.
Adam
I
wanted to-
forgot to give out what Unita Rushing brought from the Alliance, so let me give this out to you guys.
Done? Yes? Okay. Okay. On this day, Wednesday, January 16, 2013, at 11:25, a meeting of the Committee on Capital Improvements of the Board of Commissioners, Chicago Park District, is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Chair Commissioner Koldyke. Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Here.
Commissioner Shalaby.
Here.
Commissioner Lavelle. President Roberts.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Vice President Armstrong, Commissioner Allen, Chief Administrative Officer Tanya Anthony, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item 1, from the Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities, authorization to issue final payment for work completed in connection with Eugene Field and Wells Park's ADA transition plan. Rob Raymond.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rob Raymond, Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities. This is a wrap-up of an ADA project, both at Field and Wells Park. Field Park is located at 5100 North Ridgeway, and Wells is at 2333 West Sunnyside Avenue. This is to certify that Burling Builders on December 5th, 2012 completed in a satisfactory manner and in full compliance with the terms and conditions of the contract all work in connection with Eugene Field and Wells Park's ADA transition plan. The inspector approving final payment is Linda Daly. I'm therefore requesting approval of final payment in favor of Burling Builders Incorporated in the amount of $75,490.03. The original contract amount was $1,565,000. There were change orders in the amount of $203,125. That's approximately 12.9%. And the total contract amount ended up being $1,768,125. The minority participation in this contract was 39%, and women-owned business participation was 12%. The scope of work included interior and exterior ADA accessibility renovations. Specific scope of services included interior renovation of shower, locker, and toilet rooms, including demolition of and removal of wall fixtures, installation of new fixtures, construction of walls, general path and travel adjustments, installation of elevators, site improvements, including new asphalt paving, concrete ramps, utility improvements, including drinking fountains, installation of prefab kitchenettes. Some photos of before and after throughout the building. It should be noted that this work is very focused on ADA improvements and was purposely, limiting itself to that mission as opposed to other improvements throughout the building. We did have to do a lot of aesthetic tie-in improvements and chase the connection of this work to the building, but it was focused again on ADA improvements. So you can see some of the work that was done again before and after. Final payment was being withheld pending the completion of all punch list items and delivery of all required closeout documents, including as-built drawings, project manufacturer warranties, and owner's manuals. This is one of a much larger program, a $15 million program, in fact, with over 16 contracts. 5 of those contracts remain open. This is one of those 5. So upon this payment, we'll be down to closing out 4 more contracts as part of that overall ADA program.
Great, thank you, Rob. Any questions?
Just one, Rob. The change orders of about 200. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
Sure.
What they
On these renovation jobs, multi-site jobs, again, given that we were trying to focus strictly on ADA improvements, we found inevitably that one improvement would sort of domino into another one, where you had to really tie in, let's say, a floor finish, wall or ceiling, or you come across some HVAC things above a ceiling you didn't anticipate. Some of those things happened, so there were owner-driven changes. And then as well, there were errors and omissions in the drawing sets from the architect of record that we will be pursuing with the architect of record based on damage that we collect due to errors and omissions, and we're in the process of doing that as well. So that at 12.9% is more than we'd like to see, certainly on jobs like this, but not astronomical.
What happens with an architect firm when they, have errors and omissions, and what does that loop back into our process in the future?
Yeah, there's a set of guidelines we use. It's very similar to what the Public Building Commission or Department of Aviation would use in assessing damages for errors and omissions. So if it's something code related, where it involves tear out and replacement, an architect can be completely responsible for all costs associated. If it's something that was overseen and not included in the drawings, that probably should have been, but we would have had to pay for anyway, there's a standard would be what we call a loss of competitive advantage, or a LOCA fee, where the architect can be held responsible for 10% of that cost, because we're getting that cost through a change order and not through a bid process. And so an acceptable amount that they would pay from that is about 10%, which was what we would see as a premium for the cost based upon a non-competitive environment. So there are various things, and so as we evaluate each one of these change orders, we push them into categories, whether it's owner-driven or an error and omission or unforeseen conditions.
And does that loop back into the procurement process in terms of scoring future architect services?
So we communicate with the Department of Purchasing about our experience. We do evaluations of architects at the closeout of each job, as well as contractors. Those go into the file. And then as we're doing new pre-qualified pools or putting things out to bid, a drastic case would be a disbarment. Right. You don't see that quite often. Sometimes a contractor just has, or an architect, just didn't have the right team. Their firm has evolved, and they've done successful work since then.
Right.
So we keep track of that and work a lot with Rafi and his staff and evaluating contractors and architects along the way.
What was the time length between the before and after?
Oh, in terms of construction?
Before the before pictures and the completed renovation, what was the time frame in here?
I think that this contract was about, let's see, the original contract period. Award date was 2014. Substantial completion. It was about 1 year. Well, a little over a year. And there was a delay time between the completion of the job and this final payment based upon collection of, again, the final payment amount is usually a small portion of the overall payment that's gone out. So sometimes it's hard to get contractors to get all the required paperwork in to close out the job. So this final payment, like some others you may see come across as final payments, they're a bit delayed because we will not issue that final payment until we know we have all the warranties and all the paperwork that sometimes contractors are slow to turn into us. So we have it all now, and so this is the request for final payment to close out the job.
Any further questions? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado,
Aye.
Commissioner Shalaby,
Aye.
President Trowbridge.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities, authorization to enter into a contract award for River Park artificial turf and track renovation. Ron Raven.
Thank you. River Park is at 5100 North Francisco Avenue. That's a 30-acre park in the North Region, Lincoln Square community. It is recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into contract with Friedler Construction for the renovation of River Park artificial turf and track. Construction is to be substantially completed within 90 days of notice to proceed. That would put us in June. The contract amount is not to exceed $1,044,800. The minority and women-owned participation are 25 and 5. This is a concept plan of the track. This is basically what is out there today, and I'll walk you through that in a minute. Just to describe the scope of work, the work includes but is not limited to the renovation of an existing artificial turf field and track. The new artificial turf field replaces an existing field and will be marked as a soccer field with a playing surface of 214 feet by 340 feet. The scope of work includes excavation, grading, earthwork, and drainage, concrete curbs, walks, a new artificial turf surface, site amenities such as spike racks, bleachers, and sports goals, and the existing 8-lane track will be resurfaced. This is a photo of the existing track surface. You can see that the running surface, which is about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch of softer material, is crumbling away. It needs to be taken off and reapplied. You can see the turf in the middle of the track. There are problems with this track. When it was originally installed, the base that was used was a CA6 with a lot of fines. It's not the spec that we use today, and they had problems with drainage from day one. So as you can see, on a rainy day, this would never happen on any of our new artificial turfs. But there was a problem with installation. It's been this way for the last 12 years, and it's been playable, but it's worn out early because of this poor drainage.
So we're looking at standing water on the artificial turf field.
Yes, you are. And it's in kind of a bowl here. What's really unfortunate about the situation and the drainage layer or the base layer that was supposed to be a drainage layer in this initial installation, it should have worked like a charm. There's an outlet that goes directly to the river, which is lower than this site, right adjacent. So for us, it's a pretty easy fix. What we'll do is we'll take out this existing artificial turf, we'll permeate, we won't completely excavate, but we'll permeate the existing and then raise up. So we were able to bring this in. The cost of this job is a lot less than a brand new artificial turf because we're building up, limiting excavation, putting on a new surface, and then connecting to existing drainage. So as a rehab, the new field will be playable all the time, like our other artificial turfs. It'll be a much better installation, and so recommending to go forward.
So how did this happen, where this does not drain? It was a
There-
problem with engineering or with the installation?
I think it was a problem with the base material specified and became compacted pretty quickly after installation. And we use a CA7 or larger, which is it's a larger stone. It doesn't compact in the same way. It doesn't fill in with fines, and so it always drains through perfectly. This is turned into basically hard pan, almost like a concrete surface.
Do we have other artificial turfs that were done in this same way in the city?
Not exactly the same way. We had problems with an artificial turf at Douglas. It was built by an outside group and donated to the Park District, and it was installed improperly. We had some problems with drainage that we've since attempted to fix, improve drainage, and I think we've made some strides with that field, but that one will probably need renovation within the next 5 years as well.
But this is the only one that was
This
done
is the only
with
one
that
that was done,
specification.
yeah, like that, yeah.
And how long ago was that?
I think 12 years ago, maybe.
Rob, we one of our hopes and beliefs is that as we install all these new artificial turf fields, that if that turf has a life of 10 to 12 years, that when we go back to replace the turf, that we will get the benefit of the drainage infrastructure that was built 10 years previous.
I believe you absolutely will. So if the typical cost for an artificial turf is around 1.2, I could see a renovation being half that amount or less, based on the fact that you're just really replacing the surface. And honestly, even if it's a 10-year warranty on an artificial turf, given the improvements in technology and the products that are going in now, I can see getting certainly over 15 years out of an artificial turf, any of the ones that we've been doing in the last couple of years.
Any further questions? Yeah. Do we want to take? Are there any further questions from the commissioners?
Is there a question? I know it's out of, I see someone was, yes?
Yeah, but we don't have the speakers list, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any further questions from the commissioners? No? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to accept.
Is there a second?
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter of this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3 from the Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities, authorization to enter into contract for restoration of the Van Buren Footbridge and North Stair in Grant Park.
Okay, thank you again, Rob Raymond, Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities. This site is in Grant Park. We're all familiar with that location at 33-1 East Randolph Street. More specifically, this bridge is in the near the Congress Parkway in the southwest part of Grant Park. It's a footbridge that spans the Metro tracks just north of Congress and south of Jackson. You can see that outlined in red. It's recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into a contract award with F.H. Passion, S.N. Nielsen and Associates, LLC, for the restoration of the Van Buren Footbridge and North Stair in Grant Park. The contractor was selected to a publicly advertised invitation for bid. Just want to walk you through some photos of the existing conditions on the bridge. It's severely deteriorated. You can see rusted rebar, missing railings, and it's just above the Metro line and Metro tracks where people are entering the trains. So that for a while there was concrete and debris falling onto the platform below. It was pretty alarming. You can see from this photo that the deterioration is fairly advanced. Picture of the south girder west span below, just to get an order of magnitude. You can see the high voltage lines for Metro running right below the bridge. More conditions. This is the west abutment. You can see, it's a little hard to see here, but you can see shifting panels, pieces sinking and falling along the northwest stair and vent shaft, and the east abutment wall. These kinds of conditions are pervasive along the bridge. The contract period would be 273 consecutive calendar days from notice to proceed, or about 9 months. The minority owned participation in the contract is 25.2%, and there's 5.03 women owned participation. And other than that, it's a relatively straightforward project. We're rebuilding, basically reusing a lot of the existing structure, removing all bad concrete, redoing, recasting railings and surfaces. This is, should be noted, this is the second time we bid this project. The first time we bid it out, we got 2 responsive bids. This time we went out outside of our pre-qualified contractor pool to try to do better. So as the second, again, it was originally bid on April 25th. And we got one proposal from F.H. Passion, this company actually, at $3,223,000. Therefore, the Passion, who's actually won this bid, has lowered their bid by $287,000 based upon this rebid. So I think it was definitely worth going back out. Even though we got the same contractor, we got a much better price. So.
Questions?
Just one question. Is there an immediate need to redo this now, or how is the timing determined?
Yeah, we actually had to go in under some advanced measures to go remove falling concrete through a rapid response. So we had to put up scaffolding, take off all the loose concrete. It made it actually look worse, but function better, because the structure underneath was at least okay. It's fine for now. We fenced off certain areas on the bridge to keep people away from the railings, and it's there now, but it's in imminent need of actual repair. So the Band-Aid work, the temporary work, we've already had to get out there to do on an emergency basis.
I'm very familiar with this bridge. It's right near North President's Court, and it's pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see this coming forward.
Let me ask you a question. I'm sure you share what all the commissioners feel. We'd love to spend money on green space and summer camps and programs and fixing our field houses, and really with fixing a bridge. Why is this our bridge? Why can't we get someone else in the city to pay for this?
That's a really good question. We don't have a lot of infrastructure like this. Most of the cases where we have bridges and parks, they do either belong to CDOT or some other entity. So we did a scouring of our, of our real estate, trying to make sure that we wanted to find out for sure whether or not this is our asset and we're responsible for it. And there was no way to get out of it. So we approached CDOT. We were looking for ways to get a city partnership, and we just couldn't stir the interest at this point in time, and unfortunately the work needs to be done in the short term.
And there's just absolutely no question it's ours and no one else's.
It's ours, and we've made a TIF run at this. We've tried to bring some outside funding sources, but we just haven't had any luck.
Are there other parts of Grand Park that this is like a pedestrian bridge, right? This
is a pedestrian bridge. There are others that we own that aren't in as bad a shape. There are a lot of the bridges CDOT does own because they're actually at roadways. So there are a few locations like this where we have these adjacencies to other departments, and this is one where we just didn't win out.
Is there any, and again, what would their interest be in taking on, I guess, an expensive liability, but is there any way to survey what we're responsible, and before it gets to this point where we've got to fix it, to try to have some negotiation to rationalize these things, and the departments that should have them and should pay for them would take them on?
Yeah, we've actually been talking to the general superintendent quite a bit about this. He's interested in making sure that what we do is our core business, and continuing conversations with other city agencies about their ability to do inspections that we don't necessarily do. Should we really be in the bridge business, that kind of thing. There's a lot of historical conditions that we just have because that's the way, it's the hand we've been dealt, but we are looking at ways to potentially shift that and hopefully take some of this larger, more costly infrastructure that's out of our core business and put it in the hands where maybe it might be more appropriate. So we'll be continuing to look at that.
Any further questions?
And this is with the lowest possible bidder, by the way?
Yes, after 2 bidding cycles, this is the low bid that we got. So it wasn't a proposal, it was an IFB, so this is the low bid.
And in terms of additional things that may come up in the future, I mean, have we had much experience in this before, or with this contractor, in terms of things that may come up in addition to this?
Yeah, actually, we do quite a bit of work with F.H. Passion, S.N. Nielsen. They also do a lot of work with other city agencies. I would say they have a reputation for, once they take a job, having they typically thoroughly examine the jobs and they don't come back with lots of unforeseen or problems. They were one of the few contractors actually willing to look at a job where they're working off hours within feet of moving trains with high voltage lines going through. A lot of contractors didn't want to touch it, and they're used to handling jobs that are a little more complex and off hours. So I'm pretty comfortable they'll get the job done on time.
Further questions? If no objection, we'll apply the last favor roll call vote from
There needs to be a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get a
moved.
motion. Sorry.
For a second?
Thank you, Commissioner. If no objection, we'll apply the last favor roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Capital Improvements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So,
Second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Capital Improvements is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, January 16th, 2013, at 11:45 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Board of Commissioners of Chicago Park District being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
yes, sir. Commissioner Shalaby?
Here.
Commissioner Koldyke? Commissioner Lavelle? Commissioner Salgado?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Vice President Armstrong?
Here.
President Robert?
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Chief Administrative Officer Tanya Anthony and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. At this time, the Committee of the Whole will consider various matters which are, pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, appropriately discussed at executive session. There will be a discussion of a litigation case and a review of executive session minutes pursuant to 5 ILCS 120, Section 2, subsection C, 11, and 21. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. The meeting is now in executive session. Is there a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. Return to open session.
The Board of Commissioners met in executive session to discuss a litigation case, review executive session minutes, and have the following matters of new business. There was a discussion of the settlement agreement of Chan Singh versus the Chicago Park District in the amount of $300,000. Is there a motion to approve the settlement?
So moved.
Second.
Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Commissioner Shalaby?
Aye.
Commissioner Lavelle? Commissioner Salgado?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Robert?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
There was also a review of the closed session minutes as is required by the Code of the Chicago Park District, Chapter 2, Section A, subsection 16F. The Board of Commissioners, per the Code of the Chicago Park District, Chapter 2, Section A, subsection 16D, recommends the destruction of verbatim records for January 12th, 2011, February 9th, 2011, April 16th, 2011. Is there a motion to approve the destruction?
So moved.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
The Board of Commissioners, per the Code of the Chicago Park District, Chapter 2, Section A, subsection 16F2, also recommends the release of the following executive session minutes for public inspection. July 11th, 2012, April 8th, 2012, December 12th, 2012. Is there a motion?
August 8th, 2012. Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee of the Whole is now adjourned.